great. Well, thank you so much, Annabelle, for joining me today to talk about It's a Love Story and your writing journey and you. And ever since I met you at that retreat in November, we said, I think it was November. Now
It
I'm not
was.
sure because I said it, but I have just been obsessed with you and like your personality. And I feel like you were such a highlight there. And I am obsessed with everything that you write. And It's a Love Story is no exception. So I'm so excited to talk about it. And like, thanks so much for making the time in your crazy schedule before you leave tomorrow and with your party last night just to talk to me and talk about everything.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I felt the same way. I felt like spending a weekend with you and Betty was just about like the most life affirming, energizing thing that I'd done in a long time. So I've been following along with all your stuff and I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It felt the same way to me. I feel like we clicked. We were just talking about that like I feel like your writing style scratches an itch in my brain and just makes me so happy. And I don't always get that reading anything. And I think that it's maybe a little bit of you and a little bit of your work and all of the things together.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you a bit about how you got started because I Googled Annabel Monaghan and it said you spent your teenage years almost making it happen. What does that mean?
I wrote a book. My very first book was a nonfiction book, and it was sort of about positive thinking for teenagers, and literally nobody read it. But it was about making it happen. So I think that's probably why that phrase happened. But I was a person who, growing up, I always wanted to be a writer, and I was like kind of focused on it, but not doing any writing. And I went to college and was an English major and I took writing courses and my idea was I was going to graduate from college and write a book. But what I didn't really consider is that you can't just graduate from college and get a job writing a book. That is not like a financially viable thing. No one will pay your rent while you're writing a book. So that became impossible for me. And I got a job on Wall Street. And I actually went and worked on Wall Street for a couple of years, got a little bit swept up in that and wasn't doing any writing. And then I went and got an MBA at University of Pennsylvania. And then I became an investment banker. And then I was like, it was the years when I was like, all of my dreams have died. Like, I will never do this. I will never write. And I actually didn't write anything until I was 37 years old. So it's like if you think about how young you were when you started your career, like I started my career when I was 37 years old.
That's incredible. I feel like
Yeah.
so I guess like what was your outlet then not writing? I feel like did you have another outlet since you weren't writing but something creative that like felt fulfilling to you outside of the investment banking?
It's such a good question. I never really thought of it at the time. During that time after I stopped working and before I started writing, I was at home with three kids. So, like, trust me, that takes up a ton of time. But I was always doing something like writing a little scavenger hunt or like I was always like trying to do and I didn't realize that the sort of lame creative things I was trying to do is because like I had something in me that was like needed to get out. And then when I finally started writing, I just felt like, so I wrote this nonfiction book and then I wrote two young adult books, and I just felt like so much less plugged up. It was sort of a sad time for me when I wasn't writing. I mean, I wasn't sad all the time, but it was like I felt a sense of loss about it.
No, I understand. That's kind of where that question came from is I was like, I feel like I can't imagine not having acting and I don't know what I would do otherwise. But I totally understand. So you were like the best mom, like doing scavenger hunts and things. That's amazing. I think that's so fun.
Okay, I have a mug that says world's best mom, but I don't totally believe it. I'm probably not the best mom, but I was a perfectly adequate mom.
I feel like you would be in the top five. I
Oh,
know
top
quite a
five?
few. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair thing. I That's been my thing
Right.
recently. Like when someone's like, I don't know if I'm the best. I'm like, I'm sure you're in the top five, which is amazing when you think about the billions and billions of people. Like top five is like
I'm going to
there.
take this. I might add this to my bio.
I think you should.
Right?
Neighbors give you all their keys
Yep. And
and
I'm top
like
five best
top
mom.
five, at least for myself, because I tend to like have a lot of like negative self-talk that I deal with. And I feel like being like I'm probably in the top five of XYZ. I think that helps me. So hopefully the
Okay, I
intent
like it.
comes to you too.
I
But
like it.
so,
Okay, I'm gonna adopt this.
yeah, yay. Okay. Well, so your career in investment banking, then you wrote nonfiction. Was that kind of like the jump was because I
Yeah.
feel like that's a very technical math thing to go to nonfiction and then fiction. Did you feel like any skills from the investment banking translated over, like anything specific into the nonfiction and then into fiction?
Well, God, that's such a good question. I think that like knowing that you can work hard, not being afraid of hard work, is a great thing to know. Like writing a book is an absolutely daunting task. But if you've worked really hard already, you're like, I can do that. I can work really hard. So maybe that was helpful. Also, the world of Wall Street, like I wasn't really a very good investment banker, to be honest. Like you don't want me on your deal, but it's so full of like human drama. I mean, there's just so many personalities, and you work with the same people all the time, and you get to know them really well. And there's like stuff. So I don't know, like maybe just the human drama of doing that for a while helped.
I feel like I always hear write what you know, but I've also heard write what it excites you. Like, do you lean more towards one or the other, or are they kind of the same?
I think not, they're not the same, but I think both. I would add to that, write what you want to read.
Hmm.
So and I don't always do that. Like I read a lot of thrillers. I love thrillers. And I have tried to write thrillers. And like the second the cop shows up over the dead body, and then we've got the medical examiner, their eyes lock and it's immediately a romance. Like I can't not write a romance, and I can't stay dark for more than like 2 pages. I just like, it's not who I am. So I think that mostly what I write, it's not like what I know because I'm not out like falling in love all the time, but it's like my energy. Like I kind of feel good all the time. So it's hard for me to write people who are feeling bad for a long time.
That
Does that
makes
make sense?
sense. Yeah, I feel like that makes sense. I guess I was thinking about it too, talking about write what you know. You said that you actually don't know a lot about the film industry, and so you keep it more surface level, but I feel like quite a few of your books reference it. So what is your experience like, or what kind of research do you do for something that has a Hollywood twist?
So, I grew up in Los Angeles. And my family, like my grandfather was a butcher. We did not work in Hollywood, but you kind of feel it there, right? Like it's like you understand politics if you grew up in Washington, D.C. It's like that's what the town is. So you kind of understand the phrases and stuff. For this book, for It's a Love Story, I had really long conversations with two people that I know in Hollywood. One's a producer, one's a director. And I would ask them really simple questions, and they would give me really complicated answers. And then I would just try to dumb it down for myself. Like I'm not trying to teach people how to make a movie. I'm just trying to say what it's like for a person who's trying to be a producer in Hollywood. So they gave me mountains of information and research, and I just simplified it. So I'm hoping, to somebody like you who does this every day, I'm hoping that it doesn't sound like completely implausible.
No, I honestly, I totally felt like you had a ton of experience in this. Like, if you had said instead of investment banking that you were on set doing any kind of job, like set deck, or if you were a costumer, totally would have been like, yeah, of course you were. Like, I read that. I totally think so. I get
All
what you
right.
said. Somebody said to me the other day, it's almost like living in LA or living in New York is almost like playing a game of pickup basketball, and just being like in proximity to the game you tend to like play or at least have the opportunity to play or watch the game. Is that kind of what you mean growing up in LA, like that feel?
Yeah. That's actually a great way to put it. Yeah, you see people, the conversations that you hear. If you grew up on a farm, you would pick up a lot of information there too. It's kind, you're like soaking in it all the time, even if you're not involved with it.
Yeah, I feel like it really connected for me. But I want to talk about Jane. I feel like Jane, there's so many layers to her that I feel like I really like I just love her. I feel like she gives me 90s rom-com energy. She's a little awkward, maybe a little more than a little awkward. She's super smart though, and she's just not this polished ideal. And I think it makes the story feel really cozy and nostalgic. And so I guess like what went into shaping her? Did the character come first for you, or some element of the story, or how did her journey come to be?
Well, the way this whole story started in my mind was I had just read Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died. Have you
Mhm.
read it?
I have. I love that book.
I loved it. I actually read it twice in a row. Like when I
Yeah.
finished it, I started again and read it straight through again. And I just like this book has nothing to do with anything that happened to her, but I got really got to thinking of people who grow up on television, going through puberty on television, and people who are like during this time when I was like dressing up like Madonna to see if
Mhm.
that was maybe going to be my identity. If you're a person who's being put in costume and told, like, you're the punchline of every joke and you're reading from a script, I was wondering if it's possible that that person might grow up not knowing who they are. And so that's where Jane came from. She is a person who has been putting on costumes her entire life, and she has no sense of who she is internally. I will tell you that she is the most unhinged character that I've ever written. I just like I'd say that my other main characters are women who are like either have it together or they're trying to act like they have it together. They mostly do. She was just such a basket case. She gets under her desk in the middle of the day at work and just eats candy. Like she just can't deal. In order to make an awkward phone call, she needs to sit on the floor in her closet and, sit in the dark and shove candy in her mouth. I had so much fun writing her. And it was like really fun to just get that unhinged while I was writing and say, like, she gets so mad and I just don't get that mad in real life. And it just felt really good to just lose my temper all the time while I was writing this book.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that's where I feel like it's nostalgic of like the 90s rom-coms where like the characters are just like so free and fun, and I feel like I don't even know the right words for it, but I love that about her. I love how unhinged she was and how she just like did this thing, and by the end she was like, yeah, you can, my assistant can come in and see me under the desk, and this is where I'm at, this is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I love that about her. I feel like her early fame definitely shaped how others saw her, almost as much as she saw herself, though. Like, people decided who she was long before she had a chance to figure it out for herself. And I like it, that the way it shaped her sense of identity, like you were saying, I think was really impactful. How did you balance, because she's not necessarily famous now. I mean, I feel like people, when they said Janie Jason, she was talking, and Dan's family recognized her and they were like, wait, I used to watch you all the time. But I feel like she can still kind of go about some kind of her day-to-day life. How did you balance like the public eye versus that inner turmoil of figuring out who she was and what she wanted for herself?
God, it's so smart the way you put that question. But she's she used to be famous for like, and this wasn't the biggest sitcom on TV either, but she was a person who was recognized for a moment, and then she never did anything afterwards. But she was also famous for being like the girl who shows up and sits on the plate of nachos at the end of the show, and then everyone laughs at her. She was famous for being like a punchline and a joke. And what you said about having the her external world and everybody else's opinions of her define who she is, I sort of think that's the point of the book. Of course, I never know what the point of a book is until I'm completely finished writing it. It's like, do we ever take a minute and look at like all the self-talk that we give ourselves and our own personal worthiness? Are we top five? Are we the worst? And wonder like, where did those opinions come from? Like, who was it that said we're not good at math or we're not pretty enough or whatever the thing is. And I think there's a part of our evolution growing up. It can happen at any time where you just stop and say, like, maybe that was their problem. Maybe who said I was a joke?
Yeah, I feel like maybe that's something that why I wanted to talk about it is it really resonated with me because that was something I've been doing the last year is exploring why I don't like things. I think I talked about it a little bit on a Substack a few months ago. Just like, why do I really not like to dance, or did somebody tell me that I wasn't good at dancing? And so, in like a effort of self-preservation, I was like, I don't like dancing, so I just don't do it. And why do I not like certain foods, or why do I not like all these things? And maybe it's because I genuinely really don't like them. But also, like you said, those outside opinions and things that were put on us in our youth that we were like, oh, well, this is like a piece of who I am now. I carried this with me. And when it's okay to maybe set it down. And I feel
Yeah.
like Dan's family, he had such a big, fun family. And it's something that I just like, it felt like such a big, warm hug and so light and sweet. And I feel like his family represented something really special. And you really explored to me, what it meant to truly be known by somebody.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's another piece of it. What does it mean to you to be really truly known and seen, and how did that work its way into the book between Jane and Dan and his family?
Yeah, I love Dan's family. And I wrote Dan's family so easily. Like some parts of writing are so hard. Dan's family appeared like all of them with their personalities all at once. I was like, oh, here you are. You're so loud. Stop it. I've been thinking about this kind of family like for probably 20 years, and I've met many of them. It's the big, loud family that maybe greets each other with insults.
Yeah.
It's not the family where it's like, oh, thank you for coming, and then they sort of look you up and down and there's something unsaid. There's nothing unsaid in Dan's family. And so everybody knows where they stand. All the embarrassing stories are told every day, so like we don't have to feel embarrassed about them, we just tell them. um, and you just know that you're loved. And Dan is the person who doesn't totally fit in with his family, and he's fine with it because he's like loved and he doesn't fit in, and they tease him about it, and it's not a big deal. Um, Jane has no idea who she is or whether she fits in or doesn't fit in. And so they were kind of like his big accepting family was sort of a foil to just how she's, I don't know, she's just like so out there on her own trying to figure things out, and has a lot of like quiet secrets with her mother. She and her mother have a million unsaid things. They have a really nice relationship, but just a lot of unsaid things between them, which I frankly think is more common in a family.
Yeah, I think it is too. And, I wanted to talk about her mantra. Jane kind of goes by, fake it till you make it. And do you believe in that necessarily? Like, do you believe if you're nervous about something to just not, to pretend like you're not nervous about it in that way? Do you feel like that's not necessarily a sustainable mantra, but like, does that resonate in any part of your life where you were like, yeah, fake it till you make it?
Sometimes, not always. Like, I think that you have to have a place to go with your real feelings. Like, I would say that person, that would be my sister or my husband. And I would say, I have to do this thing and I absolutely don't think I can do it. And here's why. Like, that's just being like honest. But if you have to do it, or if you want to do it, I think that you can fake it till you make it in just really small ways. Like talk to yourself about like the small piece that you actually know you can do. Like I could do that part, and sit with that for a minute until you feel a little better. And you're like, I wonder if I could do the next part. Um, and just kind of like manifest your own confidence. I do think there's definitely a time for that.
That makes sense. I feel like what you're talking about is so vulnerable. I feel like it speaks to like how hard vulnerability can be. Because saying like, oh, just like being honest about these things, I'm like, oh gosh, that's like kind of scary. And I was actually talking to
Yeah.
somebody the other day. I feel like writing is like super, super vulnerable.
Oh,
And then they were like, you're an actor. Like, I feel like acting is like also super vulnerable. And I think that like to me, I'm like, acting isn't as vulnerable because like you're playing somebody else, you're putting somebody else's shoes on, and at least I'm like, oh, this is like somebody else's world I'm telling, this is like their vulnerability and their, but writing, I'm like, that scares the crap out of me. I'm like putting so much into it. How do you navigate that? I feel like that's such a brave open thing to do.
God, it's interesting. I actually wonder how it's different, how acting and writing is different. My experience when I first started writing fiction, I was writing young adult fiction, and those stories were about a 17-year-old girl. And so when you write a book, you reveal all sorts of stuff about yourself that you never intended to reveal, right? Like, so, but what I was doing when I was writing those books is revealing myself at 17. Like, this is my worldview when I was 17. And frankly, who cares? Like, that was a long time ago. When I started writing for adults, that's when it became very vulnerable. Because when I'm writing love stories, frequently about women who were married, have children, I'm revealing how I feel about falling in love, about being a mother, about being in a relationship, like about my place in the world. Um, and it felt so vulnerable to do it, but there's also something in me that had to do it. Like the fear and the vulnerability were matched by how much I wanted to write these stories. Um, so maybe it was brave. I kind of think I just had to do it. Like, I don't really feel like I had any choice but to go there. So there they are. Like, my heart is on the page.
Yeah. Well, I love your heart on the page. I truly do. I feel like I already told you I love your writing style, and it just really speaks to me. And I'm curious how you went about finding your voice, like in your work.
Oh, I forgot to say this part of my career. So after I wrote the young adult novels and no one really read them, I mean, a couple people did. Then I started writing a column for my local paper, and
Mhm.
I was paid like $60 every 2 weeks. That was my job. And I wrote essays about like home life, like ha-has about being a mom and my kids and stuff. And those essays were 100 times more popular than my young adult books.
Mm.
And they got picked up by a lot of other outlets and they started appearing a lot of places. And I wrote those every 2 weeks, and it was just an exercise in finding my voice. Because you can't write about your home life, yourself, your household without being totally honest. So like 700 words at a time, I just became very honest. And now I think people do this on Substack. I mean, there are places to develop your voice that you don't have to have a column. But I did that for 10 years. And then when I was 50, I wrote Nora Goes Off Script. It was like my voice was ready to go.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. What would you say, I guess, then is what would be your advice to writers who are up and coming or aspiring or just starting, or how would you encourage them to find their voice and to get going on it?
Well, they're the obvious pieces of advice, like read. I think that reading is the best training for writing. If you read a lot of books, you know how a book goes. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know that you need to study writing if you read a lot of books. That's one thing. Um, Developing the muscle of writing is really important. Just like writing a little bit of something every day, it's like the fear breaks down because you don't have to do that. But my real advice is to write the book or the whatever that only you can write. So don't look at the, bestseller list and say, "Oh, it's all dragons now. I got to write my dragon book." Because by the time you write your dragon book, dragons are going to be over.
Mm.
And that wasn't your idea. So, like, you don't go to what's popular or what's commercial or what's trending right now. Like, write the book that you're like, when you start thinking about it, you get like kind of tingly about it because that's your story to tell. And then that's going to come across as authentic and people will say, "Oh, I love your voice." And it's just like, "Well, that's just my voice."
It's like we just love you. We just, yeah. No, I love that though. I really appreciate that advice. I feel like there's so much to writing and that process, and I feel like there's just so much to it. I think I find it to be very daunting, but also very fascinating. And I love hearing what different experiences bring and what that advice turns into. So I guess what do you hope that readers will take away from It's a Love Story? Are there like a few messages that you're like, I hope by the end of this you feel this, or you remember this?
Um, when I write a book, I just want people to be like, smile while they're reading it. And then when they're done reading it, I want them to say, "I feel good. Like I feel just like a little bit better, and I don't know why. That's my main goal. In this book in particular, there I've got it right here. I would hope that readers. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
I would hope that readers would have a moment to just examine their very closely held beliefs about themselves. And the movie that they're trying to make in this book is called True Story. And there's this idea that we hear a lot of stories about ourselves over decades when we're growing up, and we just bend to become those stories. And I would love for people to like look at those things and say, like, who would I be without this story? Maybe it's not even true, and just kind of let it go.
I definitely feel like I took that away from it. Oh my gosh,
Good.
Abby Jimenez said, you only write five-star reads. I agree. This book is so poignant, so funny,
Thank
so
you.
bingeable, and you're just so witty, and you are honestly one of my favorite writers. Not even top five. You're like I think my favorite writer. I love your work. I am
Okay.
obsessed with
I'm
you.
gonna get a mug. I'm gonna get a mug that says that.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'll send
Thank
you a
you.
mug that says that. Yeah, oh, I wanted to go back two steps because I mentioned in the beginning that you spent your teenage years trying to make it. I also read in that same blurb that you had dinner with Badana, not the same table, but the same restaurant. So I just was really curious, like who you would want to dine with if you could dine with literally anybody and where you would eat.
So I hate to say this, I never care what I eat. I don't
Really?
like picking the restaurant. I would want her to pick the restaurant. But I'm going to say I would really like to meet Margaret Atwood. And I don't know if you've read a lot of Margaret Atwood. She wrote The Handmaid's Tale, which is, very famous and it's become a TV thing. But all of her books are the books that I read, when I was like a teenager and a young adult. And they were not the books that inspired me to write. They were the books that made me sure that I could never be a writer because I could never write the way she does. Um, and I would love to just sit, I would just love to like see her train of thought, because her books are so complicated and delightful. So she's my first choice. Also, she's Canadian, and I love all the Canadians.
I wonder if her neighbors give her their keys too.
I wouldn't. You know
No?
what? She has a dark side. I would not give her my
Uh,
key. I'd have dinner with her. I'd pick up the tab, but I would not give her my key.
okay. And you don't care where you eat. So that's like also a nice extension of like wherever you want. Like,
Yeah, and then if I pick the restaurant, I just randomly pick it. Like, okay, this one. And then I feel responsible for everybody's dinner the entire time.
oh,
So I really like to be a passenger on a meal.
I understand that. I feel like I do care what I eat, but I also if I pick the restaurant, especially if I say like, "Oh, I really like this place," I do feel that responsibility. So that makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah,
I can't
okay.
handle the pressure.
I know, I get it. I do. Um, well, gosh, I feel like there's so many things I could still ask you, but I also want to respect your time, and I know we could always talk about more things later, separate. So, I wanted to know what your favorite independent bookstore is, or a few independent bookstores that you'd want to shout out.
Oh gosh, I the my independent bookstore is called Athena Books, in Old Greenwich, Connecticut. It is a woman-owned bookstore that looks like your dream living room. It's
Ooh,
all painted sort of a green blue on the walls, and it has couches for you to sit down. You could spend like a month in this bookstore.
yeah.
But they did my launch event last night. I'm going to their store tonight for a big event. They did all of my pre-signed pre-order campaign. I mean, they've been working on It's a Love Story so hard, for the last month. So yes, they are by far my favorite bookstore.
Oh my gosh, okay. I love having a list. That's like one of my also favorite questions to ask outside of the wonderful advice is like favorite bookstore. And then also anything you've read and loved recently or any books that you're super excited about that are coming up.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I just finished listening to The Wedding People.
Yeah.
And it was so good that I was actually mad. Like I was mad at Allison. Like I'm like, why? could somebody write this book? That's how good I thought it was.
It was
I thought it was
amazing.
amazing. Here's I just happen to have these with me. This is called Far and Away,
Mhm.
by Amy Popel. She's one of my favorite writers. This comes out on June 10th. And this is about there's a family in Berlin, and the husband unexpectedly takes a job in Dallas. There's a family in Dallas who have gotten into a ton of trouble and they need to get out of town, and they switch homes. And then their lives become entwined. It's so good. This is out
Sounds
on June 10th.
amazing.
Yes. And
Oh my gosh.
also everything she's written, you will love. Go read her whole backlist. She's one of my favorites. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm so excited. I love those are my two selfish questions because I'm like I want to know so I can add them to my TBR and immediately run through them and have more to read. And then also bookstores to make sure that I like go check out every time I'm in town anywhere new. I that's one of my favorite things to do is exploring new independent bookstores. I feel like they're all so like well curated and thoughtful. And I just love
And
it. But
unique. They're all different. It's not like, oh, I've been to one bookstore, I've seen them all. They're all totally different. So
yeah.
if you ever come to Greenwich, Connecticut, I'll pick you up and take you to mine.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. I would love to go. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to share either about It's a Love Story or about your writing journey or just something that people don't know about you that you're like, I want you to know this?
I'm stumped. I can't think of one thing that it is interesting to know. I used to teach novel writing
Oh,
at Sarah Lawrence College. They had it was like an adult education program. Um, and I don't know that I was a very good teacher. I find it very hard to explain to somebody how to write a book because the way I write a book is so chaotic. And I don't follow any kind of formula. I don't have a process. I type for a billion hours until there's a book. Um, so I don't teach anymore.
so you just like knock out like draft after draft, or is it like the first draft you just sit down and you write it? And do you usually have to do a lot of revision, or is it just kind of like, oh, there it is? It's like
Yeah,
genius.
no, never. It's never that way. That's the fantasy way. It's never that way. I'll write out a draft, and that's fun because like it's the first draft, and it can be so bad, and it doesn't matter. And I love doing that. And I'll usually write two drafts before I send it to my editor. And I've worked with the same editor on all four of these books. And then she comes back to me with a lot of questions like, why would she have ever liked this guy? Why would she become an accountant? Why did her mother, all this stuff. And then I say, I have no idea. And it's at that point where I realize I don't know my characters at all. And then I read another draft. I probably wrote this. It's a Love Story took a longer time than even usual. I probably wrote 12 drafts of that
Oh
book.
wow. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And they're like full, like front to back. When you say a draft, it's like the whole thing.
No, every time you keep a bunch, and towards
Okay.
the later drafts, you keep, the last draft is like you keep 80% of it, and then there's
That makes
another
sense.
20%.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that was a brain fart moment. I was like, wait, I was like, you sit down and you rewrite the whole thing 12. I was like, that's a lot. But that
the
probably makes
first
more
couple
sense.
drafts, I do a lot of just starting over again. And that's the other thing about writing. You have to like it
Mhm.
because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it and somebody is going to tell you to start over, and if that is going to kill you, you shouldn't write because you're going to have to start over. And no one, I think that we in our society we love to tell the stories about geniuses who just sit down at the piano and play, like those kind of people. That's not a thing. Like nobody just sits down and does something on the first try. And writing is certainly that way. I don't know anybody who just like writes one draft of a book and it's great.
Yeah. Like I said, I could read your grocery list. Like I love everything that you write. And I'm so excited for all the future things you'll write too. And I'm gonna go back and read your nonfiction. Like I know you were like nobody read that. I'm
Oh,
gonna
don't you?
read it. I feel like I should though, especially because you said you found your voice in between writing the column and then going. I feel like it's still gonna be your voice, and maybe that's just what I'm what I'm needing.
Thank you.
So of course, thank you so much for joining me and talking about your book and about you and your journey. And I just find those things to be so fascinating. And I appreciate you sharing them with me and with book club. And I'm so excited for everyone to read It's a Love Story and to be able to talk about it with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for choosing my book for your book club. That is absolutely an honor. And even if you didn't, I would talk to you all day. So thank
Oh
you
my
for
God.
having me. This was so much fun.
Of course, thank you.